look at it. Hello. We're live. Hello, everyone. How are you going? It's Gary, Rachel. We're here from Echidna. We're doing our next live Cuppa Chat.
Yep.
Rachel. So, can't believe it's how long since the last one? We looked at February, yes.
Yeah, February
so
we were here last.
And see, there's lots of people logging in from all over the place. I noticed some folks from Canada and the US. So thank you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Some Kiwis too.
Some Kiwis.
Kia ora.
Yes. Lots of Aussies, of course. From apparently everywhere is soggy in Australia. So everyone's saying logging in from soggy somewhere. So I've got to tell you, it's very soggy here where we are too. The rain is crazy, and when will the world get back to some normality? I'm not quite sure, but anyway, I guess one good thing about rain, it means lots of people are at home and watching and
our Cuppa Chat,
enjoying their crafting, their embroidery, everything, all their sewing. And which means today we're going to be focusing on something we don't often put as much energy into as we should, I think, which is the cutting machines.
This is one of our understated tools that you can use.
We are. We're going to be talking about the amazing scan and cut machines and how you can deal with fabric, particularly on the new models with the new exciting Rotary blade kits. So we're going to dig deep into that, and as usual, what we're going to ask is that if you have any questions during this, just post them on whatever feed you're on, and we will endeavour to answer everything we can. Now, I have to tell you, we are slightly delayed, so what you're seeing is on a delay by a minute or two. So if you ask a question, and we've already moved on to the next subject, what we'll do is we'll try and come back and answer that before the day's out, but it's sometimes a little bit hard with the delay, but our team will also be looking at questions and answering them directly for you as we go along, because we've got lots to cover, and
we do.
You know what I'm like, so I tend to digress a bit, and I shouldn't. So Rachel, you've got to keep me on the straight and narrow.
I'll try and keep it on the straight and narrow, but you know, we probably will get sidetracked.
Yeah, because I don't mind to chat. So before we get into talking about the working with fabric on the cutting machine, just want to let everyone know that our Mother's Day specials are still going. So if you got some money, got some gift vouchers, looking for something still.
Till the end of May.
Till the end of May,
yeah.
Yes, indeed. So great specials on our website. So not too late to pick up a great Mother's Day special. And also, before we get into anything else, we should talk about the 𝗀𝗄C, so the Australian Quilt Convention, which is for the first and probably, I guess, the only time, I suspect, is being held in Brisbane here at the end of May. So that's from the 26th to the 29th of April. So, of May. And if you are in Brisbane, or you're coming to Brisbane, or you can get to that show, I think it's going to be very, very popular. I think it's been a long time since people have been able to get to shows.
We're really excited to be there.
Absolutely. Hey, we've got booth number 1. I don't know if that means anything, but we've got booth number 1. So as you walk in, you turn left and you'll see us there. And we have a great, fantastic competition. You just need to visit our booth and pick up a snazzy little magnifying quilt ruler, which is going to be a freebie for you. And on that ruler, there'll be a little QR code that you can scan, and that will put you into the draw to win an amazing prize worth over $2,000. So, but hey, what we've done is not everyone can make it to 𝗀𝗄C, so we're going to have another competition at the same time that we're going to make available to all our customers, regardless of where you are. The prize, unfortunately, can only be shipped within mainland Australia, so you'd have to be an Australian resident to win that particular prize, but we'll put that out on email and social media, and you'll be able to enter that as well. So it's a tandem competition.
End of May, we'll put that out.
Yes, yeah. So don't panic if you can't get to 𝗀𝗄C. We'll have something for you as well. So, and of course, 𝗀𝗄C is normally held in Melbourne, but for all the reasons that we don't need to talk about, obviously with COVID and everything, they've shifted it to Brisbane for this year. And Brisbane Convention Centre is a great venue. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time since we've done a show.
See some beautiful quilts.
There's always a massive quilt display there, isn't it? And
it's fabulous.
And of course, one of the things we're going to talk about today on this is how you can incorporate the latest technology in scan and cut into your quilting, patchworking, and that sort of thing. So that's exciting. I would like to talk about another thing that is causing issues for everyone in every industry. And most people are really, really understanding, but sometimes, we just get frustrated because we haven't received the goods, or your shipment's been delayed or whatever, and that is the supply chain issues that are going on in the world at the moment. So folks, I'm almost certain everyone has experienced an issue with something not arriving when it should have, or it's not in stock or whatever. I just ask everyone to be really patient with the retailers and the suppliers, because honestly, so many things are out of our control that there's nothing you can do. A good one to explain that, where's our mats here, Rachel? That's a good one to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we released our wonderful new machine mats not that long ago. This is the largest machine mat. I love the design, little echidna and a little baby echidna there, and an Aussie sunset kind of thing. And they've been really, really popular. We've got 3 sizes in these. That's the large one. That fits the biggest machines like the Luminaires and the Stellaires, or any of the big machines, regardless of what model or make you've got. And there's a medium size for the slightly smaller, and then there's the smaller one for a conventional sewing machine or an overlocker. Now, we did a survey, it was 6 months ago, I think. We did a survey on, what do you think is the most important thing to have a reason to have a machine mat on your bench? And, obviously, helping prevent vibration is important, but protecting the bench top was one of the key things, because sometimes we're sewing on really nice tables or kitchen tables, dining room tables, and that mat protects it really, really well, and also does suppress some of the vibration. Now, we got them, sold out the first shipment. I think we've got some of the small ones left, but the large ones and the medium ones are pretty much all sold out. Yep. And our next shipment is, in fact, I think just about to leave the factory in China. Yes, it's made in China, but that's where pretty much everything's made. And we have no idea when that's going to roll up on our doorstep. But if I had to have a guess, I'd say they're about 8 weeks away.
And they're coming by sea, right? So that
by
takes a little longer.
freight.
And
now,
there's a shortage of ships.
Shortage of ships, shortage of pallets, shortage of containers. I don't get it, don't understand. But all I know is that everything is taking longer to get than we would otherwise normally expect. And the worst thing is everything's more expensive to ship too.
Yeah.
As a business owner, I can tell you shipping costs have gone through the roof, and I don't know when that's going to ever pare back to how it was. May never come back to how it was, but that's a contributing factor to a lot of the price rises you're seeing in all industries. Is the actual shipping cost is just unbelievable. You'd have to be in business to understand and accept just how bad it is. So those mats are great though, and can't wait to get them back in. But that was just a bit of an explanation. Patience is the key thing for, if something's out of stock, trust me, it's almost always going to be out of the retailers or the distributors' hands, and you've just got to work with people and be patient. So that is enough said on that. And we had here, Rachel, we had a question. Was it last Cuppa Chat or somewhere we had...
I think it was last Cuppa Chat.
A lot of people asking about left-handed scissors.
Yeah.
And so we've finally got a supply of left-handed scissors in, because they are sometimes a bit hard to get. So we've finally got a supply of the 𝗂𝗁 left-handed scissors. Now 𝗂𝗁 is a great brand, and we do have these in stock. For anyone who was, I'll just come back to this screen here. For anyone who was one of those people asking about left-handed scissors, they are in stock. You can see them on our website. And 𝗂𝗁, of course, terrific product. So that answers that question.
Cut really well.
They do. 𝗂𝗁 is a terrific product. So we covered that. We've added some new little freebie giveaways that we put in our parcels. Now, I know one of the most exciting things we get from people is when they ring up and say, hey, I just got this little gift in my parcel. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We like to give away free gifts. And I find it particularly... It's fun when people go, I love the gift, but I don't know what it is. So, I think the silicon coasters that we had were one of those things, but they've been really well received.
Stabilizer cutter.
The stabilizer cutter, yes, that's another one. The bag holder that holds your handbag on the table. We've had key rings, we've had little torches, we've had, oh gosh, there's all sorts of things, I can't remember them, but it's a lot of fun for us to actually get hold of these things. Now, the most recent one, Rachel, is our new little echidna-shaped felt coasters. So, if I can open the bag, I'll take it out. It looks a bit better out of the bag. I think there's about 5 or 6 different colours. Yeah,
some are, I think we've got a purple.
There we go. Where's camera? I'm going to go down there. Camera guy's got me right now. So they're little felt coasters, got little non-slip silicon bits on the back. So really cool, bit of a collector thing. And we're going to be putting these in parcels, and you'll never know what little freebie you're going to get when we ship you a parcel. And of course, the freebies come with the product that we physically ship. Obviously, we can't send this down the internet, so it's only on physical products. And you can actually buy them if you wish. I can't remember how many colours. I think it's 5 or 6.
5.
5 colours.
Pretty sure it's
Now, I did, of course, when I first put one of these on my desk, the first thing I did was went ahead and spilt my coffee on it. I'm pleased to say that it washed out beautifully. I just had to run it under some warm water, a little bit of mild soap, and it just came up a treat. Let it dry. So those coasters are now
fun for kids too.
They are, yeah. And I'm not sure what else you can do with them, but you could hang them on a Christmas tree if you wanted to, although it's not Christmas at the moment. Okay, so we've got those guys. Another thing, because we had our first major in-store Cuppa and Chat only last week on Saturday. And it was great. It was really nice to actually have a big group of people back in our new classroom. And we had a lot of fun doing it. I know the folks there had a lot of fun, and we're going to continue doing that physically here, and we're also going to continue doing our regular live Cuppa and Chats online. So it's something that we just love doing. And one of the things that we talked about on Saturday was the dynamic walking foot. Yes. And we just touched on that again. So just going to do that just quickly. So camera guy might just... So, oh, that's not the one I want. This is the one I want. So, for those of you who have a bit of a love of sewing, and you're a quilter, or you just like doing difficult fabrics, a walking foot is a fabulous product, and I do encourage you to check out the dynamic walking foot on our website and watch the videos on it, because this guy is amazing. It is a real game changer when it comes to that sort of screw-on walking foot that you can put on pretty much any Brother machine, and most of the other brands like the 𝗀𝗵𝗵𝗴 machines will work it.
I've tried it on 𝗀𝗵𝗵𝗴, yep.
Yep, you've definitely tried that. What makes this great is it's a steel foot, and it can actually go backwards. Now, walking feet typically don't like going backwards. You can easily break them, but the dynamic foot is fantastic. But what's really nice about this is they've just recently released a set of interchangeable toe set. Now, you might be able to see that just there. And this is now available for the dynamic walking foot. And what it gives you is a quarter-inch
foot and the ditch.
And the stitch in the ditch foot. So that makes that foot even more versatile. So do check that out, because that is such a popular product for us. And if you're able to sit down and watch and get this demonstrated, you would just walk away with one, because they're just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So do please watch the videos on that. And that will give you all the information you need to know about that one.
We've got a question, Gary.
Question, yes.
Pamela has asked, are you going to get the 𝗀𝗁 right-handed scissors as well?
Well, yeah, we can look at that. It was we've got a fairly big range of, or reasonable range of scissors, but we can add the 𝗀𝗁 right-handed scissors. Yeah, just.
Oh, there's a big variety.
There's a huge variety. Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's thousands of different scissors. So, I will make. In fact, Brittany will actually make that a point of telling me after this to look into that for you. So watch this space. Yes, we should be able to organise that. No problems at all. And next product, Rachel. I've got written here the heat and bond. Are we talking about that? You're going to leave that till a bit later.
I think we'll leave that till
later.
Yep.
And then we're going to get into the rotary blade kit. So yeah, we're going to now start scanning and cutting fabric.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the thing I'd like to sort of talk about before we do this is cutting machines in general. Absolutely amazing products, and as a company we were selling cutting machines 15 years ago, I think, and then in 2013 Brother bought out the first scan and cut, and it was just a massive game changer for us, because it was just such a good technology compared to the fairly basic technology that was on the market before Brother entered the market with scan and cut. And oh gosh, we sold thousands of them. They were brilliant. And one of the things that in the early days in 2013 when it came out, we were excited about the prospect of cutting fabric. So, you know, the vast majority of our customers for Echidna are certainly sewing, quilting, embroidery enthusiasts, and the thought of being able to cut fabric was really exciting. And it did it okay. Like the way a cutting machine worked, it was dragging a little blade, dragging it through whatever you were cutting, and basically cutting it that way. Now, of course, the problem with cutting fabric is it's not a very stable thing to cut, and you've got the weave of the fabric, the grain, and you could easily pull fibres, and while it was okay, you were very limited on the fabrics you could actually cut.
And you had to use different high-tack sheet
yeah.
on a mat. There was all sorts of variables that changed the way it worked and how successful you were.
And it was frustrating because you just didn't know until you tested it whether that fabric's going to suit and have I set it up right.
There was a lot of testing required.
There was, yeah.
Especially without an auto blade.
I know. So when Brother then a few years ago released the SDX models, which replaced the CM models, and they brought out the auto blade sensing, that was a game changer, because all of a sudden now you didn't have to worry about how deep does the blade have to cut, how much pressure do I need, because they would the blade would actually test and adjust itself for whatever you were cutting, but it was still nonetheless dragging that blade through the media, which is fine when you're cutting paper or card or vinyl or anything like that, but fabric was just hard, and as long as the shape was fairly simple that you were cutting, it wasn't too bad, but if you had complex shapes, it was way more difficult. Well, last year everything changed because Brother brought out their rotary blade system, and of course they brought out 2 new models of scan and cut. So the SDX 1250 and the SDX 2250, and we're going to talk about them compared to the previous models, which was the SDX 1200 and the SDX 2200. So first thing we should explain is what is the difference between the two numbers. The SDX, the new SDX 1250 is a non-Disney machine. The SDX 2250 is a Disney machine. So
it's actually a 2250D.
A D, it's got a D on it.
D means Disney.
It does. So any Brother product you see with a D on it, that's a Disney product.
Yep.
It's got a Disney license in it. And so obviously you will pay a little bit more for that. And if you're a Disney fan, then that's fantastic, because you get all those extra Disney designs. So that's the main difference between the 2 models. And these 2 models that I just mentioned, the SDX 1250 and the SDX 2250, came out late last year, and they featured, included in the box, the new rotary blade system. Now what I might do is just hold that box up wherever I did with it. I did have one here, here we go. So this is the rotary blade little kit. So and this is standard, that what's in this box is standard in the new model. So when you open up the box, they'll be in there. Now I'm going to just briefly mention what this means and show you as best I can. Camera guy is going to give me a different shot here. Whoops, just there. The tip of the blade, instead of it being just like a little sort of knife point, it's actually a roller. And the best way to explain it is if you took a rotary cutter and put it under that machine that you know, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and shrunk the rotary cutter down, you'd have this tiny little mini rotary blade.
It is a mini, that's the best way to describe it. It's a mini rotary cutter.
Yeah, rotary cutter. So it means it's not dragging through the fabric, it's actually cutting just like a rotary cutter. And you all know, if you've used a rotary cutter, that's the nicest way to cut fabric, because it's just so precise.
And once we use it, Gary, everyone will see how it moves differently as well as a rotary blade.
Yeah,
versus the dragging of the
really clever.
Standard blade.
I have to be honest, I don't get to play with these machines very often, and if I'm fair, I'm more a sewing machine guy than I am a crafting machine guy. And so Rachel said to me last week, so Gary, you realise we're actually going to be doing a bit on Scan and Cut in the live Cuppa and Chat, so you better be up to speed with it. So I forced myself over the last couple of days.
I found some good challenges for you.
You did, and I'm super impressed. And this blade is like absolute wow factor. Okay, so what if you've already got the previous model, so the SDX 1200 or the SDX 2200? Don't despair, because you can buy the rotary blade kit, which will make your machine pretty much the same as the new model. So that's the main difference. There's really, in fact, I've made a few notes here.
There's a few more designs on the 1250 and the SDX 2250.
Yeah, a few more designs.
There are a few more designs.
But not a lot
No.
else. And honestly, if you've got an old, the previous model, just order one of these. You're going to love it. By the time we're finished today, you'll go, oh my goodness, that's just an absolute must-have, I think. So you can get that. Now, I'm going to say, before we start demonstrating this, if you were to take advantage of the special that we're going to sort of put out there today, on the previous models, because I did buy a lot of that stock when it was available at in the run-outs pricing. I've got a lot of it in the warehouse, and we're going to be doing a special that's just sensational. If you buy one of those and add one of these blades, which are only retail, I think $82.50 for the kit,
yep.
You've got near enough exactly the same machine as the new model, and you'll save a packet, absolute packet. So I'm going to leave you in suspense for a little bit on that. Yes, another question.
Will the scan and cut 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 and other furry fabric?
That's a challenge because you've got a real thickness in 𝗃𝗃𝗃 and furry fabric. So that's probably one of the fabrics. I'll be honest, I haven't tested it, and I might need to sort of come back to you on that. But I could see that as being a challenging thing to cut. Would you agree, Rachel? I think. Yeah,
I'm just trying to think of a way that you could actually. What about using SuperSolve on top to hold the? Because it's about holding the pile flat.
Yeah.
When it cuts. So you could use SuperSolve on top and do it face down, maybe.
You could. We'll experiment on that.
Yeah,
and
we will.
If we come up with a solution and can do it, someone may already have done that. And hey, I mean, one of the best things you could do, and we might do this ourselves, if you went to YouTube, can I cut 𝗃𝗃𝗃 on a scan and cut? I'll be surprised if someone hasn't tried. And as always, you know, YouTube is your friend. Whatever you want to know is there. And that's the other thing, Rachel. How many people today are making a living out of doing educational videos on YouTube on products like this? I'm gobsmacked at the amount of education that's available out there, and it's all mostly free, which is just incredible. So, but we will look into that, and Brittany's writing that down now for me to check cutting 𝗃𝗃𝗃 on scan and cut, so we'll do that as well. But the rotary blade kit, we have them in stock, and so if you have a previous model, it will not work on the CM models though. So if you have the older version of scan and cut, it is time to move up to the automatic machine with the auto blade and all the wonderful things this offers. So the blade kit is there, and we will talk about the deal we have and the differences between the models a little bit later once we wow you with some of the things this can do. We're going to be focusing on cutting fabric, right?
Yeah, and I've really chosen patchwork fabric or quilting cotton or just cotton because I guess I'm a patchwork quilter and I do a lot of applique, and that's kind of the area that we're looking at. We have tried cutting with stretch.
Oh yeah, we did a bit of two-way stretch lycra. Yep. Just give us I literally just did this a few moments ago before we started, but that's cuts it beautifully and cleanly. And what was impressive about this, Rachel, is we didn't back the fabric with anything. So there's the cut, perfect cut.
And that's the beauty of the rotary blade, is that you use it with a standard mat. You don't have to use it with fusible webbing or anything. You just use it naked, so to speak, and cut.
Absolutely. So this makes it a whole lot easier. So with that said, we've got a little sort of schedule here. This is about the most organised I've ever been, Rachel. You've given me a running list.
We've got a lot to do. So we're going to start with the fussy cutting.
We're going to talk about fussy cutting.
You're going to talk about Mr. Cow.
Okay. So one of the cool things is I'll put this down. We'll go. We might be able to go to the overhead. I think camera guy might be just as good. Yeah, that's all right. So just a little bit of lovely fabric. It's printed. The simple things like we want to cut out a shape on that cow, for instance. So we wanted to use that cow, and I'll just get this one which we just prepared earlier. Move that away for a minute. And being able to place your cut file so as it's very easy to actually identify where you want to cut on the fabric and cut it out. So that's how we did this. Now we backed this fabric with
with our hot melt
web, and I should point out which would have been essential on the previous models with the standard fabric blades, but with the roller blade it's not essential.
No.
However, if you're doing applique and you're cutting this out to put it down as an applique or something like that, then using our hot melt web on the back of that makes it very easy to adhere this to the item that you're going to applique it to. And it will mean that there's no way that's going to shift during your stitching process. You're going to get a great result, and you may as well do that before you actually cut the fabric. It's a bit easier.
I think it's a good point too to show the positive and the negative too,
Yes.
because you can always use both parts as well. No wastage. I mean, that would be a lovely frame for something if you're, you know.
Yeah, you could do, wouldn't you?
Yep.
Yeah, you could just cut that knife.
Frame from just, you'd square it up properly. That's the.
In other words, you're saying don't throw your fabric out.
Don't throw it out to keep it for something because it will become useful.
Does anyone throw their fabric out?
Yeah, we throw very
Little
small
bits
pieces
out,
away.
yeah. Well, I guess with a cutting machine, it means that, you know, you can, because you can fussy cut, you can take even small bits of fabric and you just cut pieces out of it. And one of the great things, because there's a lot of different cutting machines on the market, right?
Yeah.
The Brother Scan and Cut is the only model that has the built-in scanner. So everything we're going to do now is without the use of a computer.
Absolutely. So it's standalone. You are going to scan this piece of fabric, Gary, and then you're going to cut those little fairy girls out in a circle.
We are. So there's our little fairy fabric there, and we're just going to cut. We want to isolate that particular little fairy girls there and cut a nice little circle around there because we're going to use it for whatever we're going to use it for. And the way we do that is, let's just kick our machine up here. So, whoops.
And being a standalone machine means that you can take it on retreat because you don't need a computer to use it.
Absolutely.
It's really, really flexible. You can use it anywhere.
Now, I am using here just a fairly old and a little bit sort of worn out standard tack adhesive mat. Now, the machines do come with two mats, a low tack mat and a standard tack mat. Now, those of you who've had a cutting machine for a long time will know that the mats will lose their tack. They're a usable item or a consumable item, and you do have to buy new ones from time to time because they will wear out. I will also point out that whenever you're cutting anything, you will see little score lines on the mat. That is perfectly normal, and in fact, if you don't see score lines on the mat from your cuts, then it's probably not cutting properly. So the blade has to actually penetrate what it's cutting, and it will rub on that mat. Now, we don't have any more because we don't have any of the old models, but after 5 years of having the previous range, the CM range, we were still using mats that we opened up when we first got the product in 2013.
Wow.
And they didn't have a lot of tack left onto them, but we can use different ways of tacking things down. We can use, you know, washi tape is fantastic for tacking items down onto a mat. The 505 embroidery spray, we can also use that. And I will point out, if you do use an adhesive spray, never ever spray the mat. Always spray the item that you're actually embroidering on. So
cutting.
Oh, cutting. See, that's just my old bad habits. Embroidering on.
If you could make this embroider, Gary.
Yeah, that's it, brother.
amazing.
I want a cutting machine that has a built-in embroidery function. So if you're listening, can't see how that would happen. But anyway, not to worry. So what we're going to do is...
So you know, just thinking about the score marks on your mat, does that mean you should position it around the mat so you're not cutting in the same spot all the time? That would be a good way to
Yes, it
use
does,
your mat.
exactly. So, you know, if you haven't used this bottom corner of the mat, then, you know, putting that there and moving my cut file down to there, because that's the beauty of having the scanner built in. I have complete control of where I'm going to cut and what I'm going to cut out. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm using a standard mat. Nothing special. I won't say I have. Rachel has backed this with hot melt web. And we have web and film. So
we have
this
web
is
and
the
film.
web.
Yes, that's the web.
And the difference is this is a lighter product than film. Film's much more robust and heavier and more permanent. Web is just a lighter version of that and perfect for applique.
Gary, people would probably think of film as the product that you'd use with patches, which is what we do to iron on the back of a patch. But I think it's important to note that you can use it for applique as well, where no stitching is required.
If you're just doing a fabric raw edge applique, yeah, the film is perfect.
We'll show that.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do that a little bit later, aren't we? Okay, so before I put this into the machine, I'm just going to use the brayer tool. Now, if you've got a scan and cut or a cutting machine and you don't have one of these tools, get one, because they're just brilliant. And what it means is that I can just use that to really firmly adhere that fabric to that mat. There we go, so that's all good. And tuck the mat into the machine. Now, little tip, if you've got one of these machines, just always take a little bit of care when you're putting your mat in. Make sure it's going in evenly and that it's sitting perfectly into the rollers, into the entry there. And then it's just a matter, hopefully we can see that on screen. We'll be flicking from sort of overhead camera to the screen camera frequently, so I might get camera guy to flick to there. So we need to get the mat in, so we just hit that button. It will now load the mat for me, and now we'll do it. Now it's switched on. So it does a little test. It checks all the sort of little markings on the mats that you'll see here to make, it works out what mat you're actually putting in there. And right now what I want to do is choose the shape. Now this is the SDX 1250, and there are, I think, it's about 1,300 odd designs built into this machine. So lots of stuff built in. But you can literally cut anything you want, any shape, anything you've drawn yourself, any image you might have downloaded from the internet. The world is your oyster. You can do whatever you like. But we're just going to take a standard shape. So what shape should I take there, Rachel?
We're going to use a circle. We're going to put the fairies in a bubble.
Now you do get a stylus with the machine, which I seem to have put somewhere now. Thanks, Rachel, looking after me again. So I'm just going to scroll to a circle button here. That one will do me. That's a 100 by 100 or 100 millimeter diameter circle. At this stage, I can resize that very easily, and I think we probably want to go to around 75. What do you reckon?
I think so.
Yeah. So we're just taking a guess here. We'll just size that down. And you can size it proportionately or disproportionately. We'll go to about, we'll see 75. See how that goes. So there's my size set. And if I click set, I now have my circle, and you can see that on screen just there. And you'll notice I can drag that and move it anywhere I want on screen, but I can't see exactly where I want it at the moment. And all I need to do now is hit the scan button. So if we hit scan, start, it will now scan that hoop, and that will show on screen. And there's no other machine in the world that has a built-in scanner other than the Brother Scan and Cut, hence the name Scan and Cut. Who'd have thought? So that will now show up on screen, and there it is just there. So I'm just going to pull this down and position it where I want it. Hopefully I've made it big enough, Rachel.
Yeah, it's easy to go back in and edit if you need
so
to increase the size slightly.
Exactly, and I'm thinking I should have gone a little bit bigger. So if I just click the edit button and edit object and just size that up, I might make it, I'm back to 100. So I should have stuck with 100 to start with. I'm going to go down to 90, just because I can. So it's really, really simple, and it's very visual, so you can see exactly what you're doing. And I'm pretty happy with that. So if I click OK, OK, OK again, and I don't need to add anything more. That's all I'm doing is just cutting that object there. I hit select. Now here's the best thing. So the scan and cut you can cut with the scan and cut, you can draw with it, you can emboss, you can do foiling, and there's a whole mountain of different plug-in applications that you can get for scan and cut. But right now we just want to cut, and because it's an automatic machine and I've got everything just left as standard on auto, all I have to do is hit cut. I don't even need to test this. I know it's going to work. So if I hit start, tells me it's going to take a minute. It won't be a minute, it'll be a little less than that.
I think with the new scan and cuts too, we test less.
We do,
So with the CM models, you'd have to go in and do a test cut to see that it was the right depth and it was doing the right thing. But I've found that we are not testing at all, really.
The auto system is brilliant. It really, really is. So that has cut there now, and if I grab my little spatula, this plastic spatula comes standard, we can just get in under there and lift that fabric up a bit and peel that off. And there's a perfect cut, and I did pretty good there, I think.
You did really well.
And then it's just a matter of getting in underneath that and lifting it. And there's our first little perfect cut of our little fairy girls there. And it's a perfect circle. And if it was a complex shape, it would have cut it just as well. And we're going to do a few more complex things in a moment. There's the reverse, the negative. We just go back, and there's our cut.
So again, you can use that for a frame as well.
Now I know of folks who have bought scan and cut machines and all sorts of machines, whatever industry you're in, and have been too scared to push buttons and try these things. like everything, if you don't get in and try it and be prepared to push buttons and experiment, you will never get anywhere with it. So don't be scared, and in particular on this one, and you just mentioned it's a big difference to the old models, if you're on auto, it's going to be pretty well right. Trust the automation on this. There will be times when you're doing really difficult things, but that's when you become more advanced with the product that you might override the machine, and you can, but for 99% of times, you're just going to go auto.
Oh, you do. The only thing that I would do if I'm starting a brand new project, let's say it's an applique quilt, I will always do one test at the very beginning before on fabric that I'm willing to sacrifice in case I stuff it up. But I always do that one test.
So that's your tip, one test, but after that you're pretty much good to go. So, and have you ever had a test fail?
No.
Oh, there you
Not
go.
with
But
the
I guess
latest models.
it'd be, if you're an embroiderer, it'd be like doing that frame out.
Yes.
Testing where your design's going to sew before you actually hit the go button.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Makes sense. That's peace of mind as much as anything, isn't it? So anyway, so that's that. What are we doing next, Rachel?
So we were going to, remember yesterday I talked to you about we get a lot of panels, and that these are really, the scanning cut's brilliant for cutting panels because fabric is printed crookedly sometimes. So we have the dogs.
Now this isn't even backed. This is just raw fabric.
This is just, plain fabric.
Excellent.
And so I would cut these out for making a little mini quilt or a tote bag. Of course, I'm going to stitch them back together again. And we would do about an eighth of an inch around the outside. And so the centre guy.
One of the things that's nice, though, and I didn't mention this before, and if I just take that out, is this platform is great because it's not only a platform for using the brayer to actually roll your fabric and or whatever you're putting on there, but it's also a storage box for all your different blades and accessories. So I love that. But I guess one of the things, we've already cut one of these out, so we would want to be sure.
That's yesterday.
Yeah, that's what we cut out yesterday, and we got this kind of loose little tiny bit of fabric. So I would probably be inclined to just trim that off. I think if I had my scissors here. Now that will do me, because I don't want that getting caught anywhere.
And
so
it could get caught, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just such a fine little bit. So, whoops, you can have that and that. And so, best thing to do is you need a little bit of space when you use a cutting machine. So just roll your fabric on, make sure that it's nicely attached. Now again, this is the standard mat.
And fabric without any fusible backing.
No fusible backing at all. And it's a mat that's had a lot of use, right? So I don't really care about the mat anymore because it's got a little bit of tack left, enough to hold this. If it had less than it has at the moment, I probably would not use it. It wouldn't hold well enough, and I might put a backing on, or I might use a newer mat. Or I could use 505 spray. I could do anything to get this tacked down nicely, but that's really nicely positioned there now.
But probably a valid point with Scan and Cut, Gary, is that even though that mat is losing its tack in, it will eventually not be useful for this. It will still be useful for other things. For example, cutting paper. So you don't want a really tacky mat for cutting scrapbook paper because the new ones can really...
Can I tell you, that's one of the most common things we see. People open up a brand new Scan and Cut and put a piece of paper down on a standard mat and then wonder why they can't get it off. Paper will stick to the standard mat, so don't use that. You've got a low tack mat. Always use the lowest tack you can for your paper or card. Don't go to the standard tack mat. But your standard tack mat eventually becomes like a low tack mat because it loses some of that tackiness. So, all right, well, that's all in there. Now we just want to choose what we're going to do here. So in this instance, we're actually going to, let's get out of there, we're going to scan this and we're going to direct cut out of the fabric. So Rachel wants to cut this centre shape out. And I can see just looking at this, it's probably not that clear on a small screen. It's a little bit kind of, the pattern's a little bit wonky.
The print is not always straight.
Yeah. So if we now go into, and I should get into that habit, use my stylus. By the way, you won't hurt the screen by using your finger. The reason I'm using the stylus more than anything is so you can see the screen. So if we click on the scan button now, you'll notice we've got three options: direct cut, scan to cut data, or scan to a USB. I want to do a direct cut on here. So if I hit the direct cut button, and it'll ask me where I'm going to save it to. I'm going to save it back to my machine memory, and we just hit start. It's now going to scan what's on the hoop, and it's quite a quick on the hoop. See, here I go again. I still embroidery. It's always there. Old habits on the mat.
Oh, we've got another question.
Another question, yes.
Someone has asked, what is the difference between the roll feeder and the roll feeder 2?
The roll feeder 2 is for the newer models. It cuts a little bit wider than roll feeder 1. Is my to be honest, I haven't used roll feeder 2, but I'm pretty certain it just has a slightly wider cut option. So roll feeder 1, I think you have about a 10-inch cut width, whereas roll feeder 2 is a bit wider. Perfectly honest, I don't know that there's a great deal more difference, but that is my understanding, and I'll stand corrected. Hopefully, it says that on our website too. So if you check the website, that should tell you there. But someone can find out for me and answer that question, I'm sure. Yes,
in regards to that question, I believe the roll feeder 2 comes with leaders to make it easier to feed the vinyl as well.
Yes, that's right. There is a leader tape that actually helps, or a leader piece of card, if you want to call it that, and you tack your your vinyl roll or whatever you're feeding through onto that leader, and that helps pull the vinyl through. Because the roll feeder just lets you feed a continuous feed of vinyl or stick of vinyl, whatever it is you're using, and means you can do much longer cuts without having to. I think it's up to about 1.2 meters. You can actually do like wall stickers and that sort of thing. So. The Disney models, for instance, have some really cool, long Disney murals that you can actually cut on the roll feeder. And I'm going to tell you something interesting about the roll feeder when we talk about the wonderful deal we have very soon. But that's the difference, mostly the feeder and then a bit wider cut. I think I'd have to. Hopefully, one of my team is watching, and they are watching, and they can answer that question in a little bit more detail. Okay, so we've scanned that. Now I just need to click OK. And I want to choose the object that I want to cut. Now, I am looking to cut the center piece here. And I'm pretty sure, I've just got to make sure I remember this, Rachel, because you remember I was given the task of learning exactly how to use this only a few days ago, and I was a bit rusty. So I've just got to make that about that size there, cropping out all the other bits that I want. And that's the beauty. Once you've scanned it, you can just crop it. And I can now go preview. And it will show me what I've got. And it's selected the object. If I click OK, I can see there is a line around that object just there. And if I click
So it's a red line, isn't it, Gary?
It's actually a black line around there, yeah. Mm-hmm. And did we want to put you wanted to put a...
I think we went into the seam allowance just to check there. Yeah.
So outline distance.
I think we went...
No, we didn't. We go in there.
5. Remember I said
yes, you said 5 mil or 6
7
mil.
millimetre was a 1/4 inch, and you said let's do 5.
So
3.
you can now see
I think you did 3.
It's a little bit. I did 3, did I? Mm. So like an 1/8 of an inch kind of thing.
Yeah, 1/8 of an inch.
So I've increased. Now you can turn this machine to inches too. If you're old school inch quilting.
I would use inches.
Yes, so I'm kind of.
It's always the millimetre inches.
Well, I won this time.
Yeah, you did.
Yay. Win for me. Okay, so I've set that at 3 mil around the edge that was detected by the scanner, and if I click OK now and OK again, you can see that there's a cut file just there. It's exactly where it's supposed to be because we've identified it on this piece of fabric that we scanned, and and we isolated what we wanted to cut, and we put a 3 mil margin around the border. And I just need to say what do I want to do. I want to cut it. So I click cut. And again, we know it's going to cut. Now, this is different fabric to the last one. We have no backing on this fabric. Mm-hmm. And all I'm going to do is hit start and let it do its thing. And the only blade we're using here today is the new rotary blade. So we're not using the standard blade. And it's interesting because what it does is the blade will actually detect the depth where there's no fabric, and then it will detect the depth where there is fabric, and it makes its calculations and determines how much depth and pressure is required to cut that, that particular item.
I think it's fair to say too, Gary, that it's a really quiet blade and it doesn't interact the way, it doesn't drag across and then down like the original blades do. The rotary blade does
absolutely
stop and start and go up and down. And
it's such a quiet machine. You can hardly hear this thing. I mean, I remember the very first machines, they were a bit noisy, but these are much more powerful, much quieter. And that's now being cut, so we'll just click OK to that. And all I've got to do is I can remove that whole panel now. Remember, it was just fabric, no backing, but look at that for a perfect cut. Get our little spatula under there with a perfect 3mm border. And I mean perfect.
There's your other one to compare.
And there's, we've got a couple there now, so we can start constructing whatever it is we're going to construct with those little guys. And there's the negative there. And how easy is that? It's a perfect cut.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely perfect. No pull on the fibres, no issues around the corners, which was always the issue on the standard blades, because where they got to a sharp corner, the blade just basically had to pivot and turn around, and sometimes you'd get those corners would get sort of pulled a little bit.
Or the fabric got dragged.
Yeah. So, so that's that one. I really love.
So the next challenge was cutting small pieces for patchwork, like hexagons. So
yes.
Remember? We have a lot of people that ring up us about that.
When Scan and Cut was first released, that was perhaps one of the most common questions from our customers, was particularly because, you know, embroidery and sewing. Can I cut out, you know, 100 little hexagons for or whatever shape it is you want? And technically you could, but for all the reasons we've already outlined, it was kind of, it was not that efficient because of the way that those blades cut the fabric, and you had to back your fabric. Now, of course, you don't want to back your fabric
not if you're doing hand
for your hand quilting. So now, and then, you know, there's other machines that have die cuts, and that's a great way to do it. And if you're going to do 1,000 of these, then, you know, having a machine with a die is fantastic. But you can only cut what dies you have.
That's right.
Whereas on a machine like this, you can cut any shape you want. It's totally up to you. So what Rachel set me the task was, unassisted, was cut me as many little tiny hexagons as you can. I'm just going to get that bit of...
Brittany's got another question.
Another question, yes.
Marie has asked, will this new cutting blade work on wool felt, and would it need a backing?
A little bit will depend on the thickness of the felt, the quality of the felt. I don't believe there'd be an issue if it's a good quality.
I just want to jump in there. Often in preparation for all this fabric, I do starch things. So I am starching a lot to add some substance to the fabric. Maybe you would need to do that with a wool felt just to stop that stretch, because it can stretch. But you could probably even use a freezer paper behind a wool felt to cut. I mean, there are options. We haven't tried wool felt, but we can certainly add that to the list when we're playing with the 𝗍𝗵𝗂𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍𝗁𝗍
would actually transfer to the adhesive mat. So, and again, that'll come down to the quality of the felt and the thickness of it. And so it's a little bit, that's an experiment kind of thing. But you're right, a bit of freezer paper.
Freezer paper would be a really good option for cutting raw felt, and we should experiment.
We'll experiment with that one too.
Yeah.
Add it to your list, Pretty. So she's got that on there. So I'm just going to tack this bit of fabric down here. Whoops, we might do, take that mat out again, and I'll just, whoops. So again, you want a bit of workspace, and remember when you're using a cutting machine that the mat goes through to the back. And I should have probably put my mat a little bit on my machine, a little bit further away from me, but that's all right.
So you need space at the back as well as the front.
Yes, you do. That's pretty good. Mat is in, so let's just pop that in there. Okay, so I think we're pretty good to go there. Now,
so
we've got no
backing
backing on this, have we?
No backing again, because these will be hand-pieced hexies.
So I'm going to start fresh. We're going to go back to our main screen. Now, I remember I said there's tons and tons of built-in patterns. So I'm just going to choose a hexagon and hope I remember how I did this. I'm sure I will. we just hit the shapes, get my little stylus. Hello, camera guy's making some adjustments. Go to page 3.
I think it was.
Oh, hang on, I'll wait till we get our. We've got a small camera issue, so I'm just going to wait till camera guy gets us sorted.
So I think probably something that's relevant for hexagons too. You can cut the paper as well as the fabric.
Yes.
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 So you can, you know, have both those options if you want to cut these type of shapes. But you can also cut squares, triangles, rectangles, the usual things that you would expect if you wanted to do patchwork piecing. Yeah. So.
And there's built-in patchworking designs in here.
There are.
Which
and patterns,
and you choose the block you want, and it will automatically tell you, okay, you need 6 of this component, 7 of those, or 8 of those, or whatever.
Yep.
And you're up and running. So really, really cool. And of course, all the projects on the Scan and Cut Canvas website. If you want to go on, there's hundreds of projects on. They're all free. In fact, the online site or the website for Scan and Cut Canvas is something you can access on any device as long as you've got internet access, and you can even download that and run it locally on your own computer.
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay, are we back? Ah, there, we got camera working again. There's always a little glitch somewhere.
3.
So we're on page 3. I'm going to choose the little hexagon, and I'm going to make that. I think I did that at 60 mil.
I'm pretty
was
sure
it, or 50 mil?
60.
Now, I can disproportionately size it, but normally you're going to just leave it proportionate, so we're going to take that down.
I find the default settings are really great. I haven't needed to.
Well, I've got 60 mil there, so that's the width of it. And if we now, oops, before I go set, I'm going to go back because, no, I'm going to start that again. I'll show you, I actually forgot to do something. So we're going to go choose the pattern, page 3.
Going to scan.
In a minute, but right now I can work out if I wanted 12 of these, for instance, cut on this piece of fabric that I've got. I'm actually going to set that at 12 right now and go, and I think I can actually go in here and set my cut area. So at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm on my 12 by 12 mat. I could set my cut area here. In other words, I could crop it, but I haven't yet scanned my fabric. So I want to make sure that I'm working within the piece of fabric that I've got. So I'm just going to cancel that for a minute. But I do check that because I found when I was doing this the other day, someone had set it to the large 12 by 24 mat, and I didn't particularly want that. So I just checked that. And I've got a distance here set of 4 millimeters as a pattern interval. So I've just spaced the designs out a little bit. And we just click OK to that, and we go set. So it's telling me the size I've selected.
You actually didn't reduce the size again.
Oh, yeah, see, I've left it at 100. See, I knew this would happen to me. I knew I would get it wrong. So, but isn't that good? So if you get it wrong, the machine will say you won't fit those on what you're trying to do. So because I got out of that screen and changed it, so I'm just going to go back to that, we'll leave it at 55, that's all right, and go set with 12. And so now it's showing me, there's my 12 hexagons, but I do need to scan it and make sure they're in the right position. So if we hit the scan button now, it's going to scan and give me an image of that fabric on screen, so I can now set the area that I want to actually cut these out of. And I was just about to say stitch again. And at the very last minute I said, no, cut. Okay, so, and you can just see the background of the scan, and I've got that dimmed down because I want to be able to see what I'm doing. Now I could, if I wanted to, just go ahead and move each of these individually. I don't know how clear that is on screen. Camera guy can tell me, maybe. But I'm just going to go into, no, I'll go back there again. I think I can go into here, this is where I went, and I can now crop the area that I want to work with. And so what I'm doing is just cropping my work area down to be within the fabric area that I've got scanned. So that means if you've only got a small piece of fabric and you want to cut out 4 pieces of whatever it is you want to cut out, as long as you define where it is on screen you want to cut, it will do that for you. So we're going to click OK. And incidentally, this button here will let me darken or lighten the fabric background. Now I'm leaving it light here so I can see the designs on top of it. And we'll just click OK to that. And now that I've defined my area, if I click on the Arrange button here and choose this one, it's now set up those 12 hexagons to cut within the fabric area that I've got. And in fact, I could probably do more. So I could add more hexagons if I wanted to. And all I've got to do is then go OK. I don't need to, that's what I want. And I would click OK again. Now, do we need to cut these, or we should?
I think you should.
You should, yeah, we'll cut them.
I think we should show them.
So all I've got to do now is choose Cut and Start. And I know that's going to cut out 12 perfect hexagons. Another couple of features that it does that I think are worth noting is if you've got an odd shape that you're cutting,
yeah,
and you could spend a lot of time positioning everything so as you're going to maximise your fabric usage, this has an auto tessellate function. Tessellate means it will actually take each of the objects and move it around so as it best uses the available fabric you've got. And
so the Arrange button actually rearranges all your designs and puts them in an order that's most economical for the fabric. So I think that's a really good function to use when you're doing things like this. And of course you could make it less than 4 millimetres if you only wanted 2 millimetres between the each hexagon as in this example.
And then of course you could add more. Like if you think, oh gee, I could fit another 2 in, so you could actually just go back to Edit, select the shape, add another one and put it exactly where you want it to maximise that area. So now of course if you were, Rachel, you've done patchworking, so let's just say you needed, I don't know, 50 of these.
Yep.
For whatever project you're doing. If you had the big 24-inch mat,
you'll use the 24 mat, yeah.
You could conceivably do in one cut run 50 hexagons.
You could. So and there's 12 on this one. Yes. Yeah. And we could fit more.
Well, whatever size you're doing, yeah. So, but it's all of a sudden an economical thing to do for patchworkers, and any shape and size you want. You're not dictated by the dies that you've.
And the cut is beautiful and clean, and I think attaching them to the mat keeps it, the fabric keeps it really.
It does. It's as clean as anything. It's just fantastic. Now, of course, I could have also set a seam allowance on those, and it would have allowed, we wanted to say a 55 millimetre hexagon, and we could have had a seam allowance, so you'd have it would automatically cut everyone 1/4 inch larger than you wanted, or than the size, the finished size. So lots of stuff built into this that's just phenomenal. And all this we're talking about, honestly, there is so much education.
We're just touching on the edge of what's available. These are the basics to inspire you to get creative. Yeah.
I'm just gobsmacked at the quality of the rotary blade, though. It makes sense. Like a rotary cutter just cuts so beautifully, and it's just a little mini rotary cutter.
I've been really impressed with what we've been able to play with and produce.
Now, of course, coming back to embroidery, for applique, if anyone's ever done complex applique designs, you'll know that it can be a bit tricky getting in and cutting your fabric after you've...
Can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you get the little bits peeking out the stitching, and it's hard to stop. So there we go, that's now finished, and if we just lift up that bit of fabric, look at that. Ooh, perfect. A perfect 12 hexagons. Woohoo. And they'll just pop off like that. So I hope I did in the same. No, I don't think I did in the same size as you had there. So you've got odd bods now.
I've got odd bods. Another question.
Yes.
Leslie has asked, is there an app that you can do all of this on-screen stuff on instead of on the machine?
Yes, Scan and Cut Canvas will let you do pretty much everything as well. So that's free, and you have to log in and create an account. It's probably more powerful in most respects because you've got the full power of your computer. What we're doing on here is pretty simple, and it's designed to be not having to rely on a computer. But yeah, Scan and Cut Canvas, if you go to that website, and I'm sure we have a link on our I imagine we have a link on our website to that. But
you can just search Canvas Workspace.
Canvas Workspace,
Brother Canvas Workspace. And
create an account.
You don't have to own a Scan and Cut to use it, but obviously to be able to cut something, to use Canvas, but to be able to cut something, you'll need to.
Now that workspace also has way more advanced options too for really advanced stuff. So taking JPEG images and turning them into cut files. merging and creating your own designs, loads more fonts and lettering options, which is already a lot built in here. This has 17 fonts built into it, but Canvas is great if you want to go down that path. But that's the thing, again, for...
You don't have to.
Probably the majority of people tend to just, I like to be able to do it here. I don't need that little bit of extra workload on the... It's a bit like digitising for embroidery, you know.
Yeah,
not everyone does it.
No.
Most people like to get their own, buy
Their own
designs.
So Gary, we talked about Applique. So some of the companies provide SVG files, which of course we do with spring showers. This is one of our latest sew-alongs we've done. This is spring showers, and today we're going to introduce you to one of our new products, which is the heat and bond film, the waterproofing film that we've used for the boots.
Might just put that under this camera just quickly.
But this project, 𝗀𝗵𝗵𝗏 provide the SVG files. So I was going to get you to cut. I'm going to show them how to use that heat and bond to get that plastic cover.
So this is
it's
fabric.
A waterproofing. Yeah, fabric underneath.
With a heat and bond vinyl on top to give you that effect of that sort of the rubber boots kind of thing in the design.
But you can use heat and bond for creating cosmetic bags or a waterproof on the inside of a lunch bag.
And what's this project? This is
spring showers.
Spring showers.
I've
so
it's just got to quilt it. That's all.
Cool.
But I've used a lot of this, and I thought it was a good example to show us cutting an SVG file and how they come. Absolutely, yeah. Because they are quite common for cutting with scan and cut.
Absolutely, and the scan and cut will read an SVG file for you. And so applique designs, of course, for a lot of embroiderers will know that applique designs give you a wow factor without a big stitch count, right? So, and you can get big, you know, statements and really creative things like that without having to fill something with stitches. So we're going to get out of what I've just did. We'll just hit the home button and OK. So what are we doing here, Rachel? You're guiding me now.
I'm going to show you how to apply the heat and bonds to the fabric.
Yes, we have a question just first, Rachel. We'll go to that one.
We have a few questions just regarding scan and cut.
Yep.
First one, Anne, how do you clean all the fibres off of the mat after using fabrics and things like felt?
Yep, you use the non-alcohol.
So yeah, and Brother do recommend that you use a non-alcoholic alcohol baby wipe and just wipe it over the top and then let it dry and then put your plastic film back on.
Yep.
Two more questions. Anne has also asked, can you scan your mat when you are using the computer program Canvas Workspace Station?
Yes, you can. So, but it's a Wi-Fi connection from the machine. So you can scan something and send that back to your computer. And I'll hoping one of our other team is actually going to answer that for me, because I'm pretty sure that's what you can do, but I can't say I've actually done that myself. So I'm sure Eric or someone is watching and is going to go, yes, I'll answer that for you, Gary. So, and we'll let you know.
Carol has asked, does the rotary blade work as well when using HTV?
I haven't done it, and I don't think you need to.
No.
So it would, because it's still just it'd be no different to cutting HTV with a normal rotary cutter. So I expect it would, but we haven't done that yet.
No.
But that works pretty well with a standard blade too. So the other good thing too is the rotary blade, and I should just quickly point that out. While I've got the holder here in my hand with the rotary blade in it. The rotary blade itself is just as easy to change as a normal blade too. So if you do tend to want to use this as your main blade for what a lot of the things you're doing.
It might be a bit like, when you're using a rotary cutter, if it gets blunt or dull, then that becomes your paper blade. But I would probably have a separate one for paper and a separate one for fabric. So
keep your sharpest blade for your fabrics, because they're the hardest thing to cut. And I think the only thing I'd be just a little bit unsure about until we actually test it is doing half cuts on your vinyls, because you don't want to cut all the way through. So we will test it though, and we will answer that.
But there's also the vinyl auto blade kit, which is for, sorry, that's the Disney one. There was the other one, which is for cutting different types of vinyl. So if you're having, if you wanted to know if that was available, that is another option for you.
So there, they have developed a vinyl auto blade kit specifically for vinyl, and I think there's probably a reason for that, because it does a better job.
Keep going, Britt.
Yep. Next question.
A question from Bridget. When an embroidery company includes SVGs, how do we know if they have put an offset in the design so that it's slightly bigger to go under stitches?
Oh gosh.
So that's actually probably what we're going to do here.
Yeah. That's a good question though. So a digitising company, a company that supplies designs, if they're giving us the cut file.
So with spring showers, that would be the size of the design, and then the placement. I mean, I guess you could print out the SVG. Well,
so there's two things to consider here. So when the placement stitch is, or the cut file is created, normally what happens if I was creating an applique file, for instance, I would have my placement stitch. I would then have my my tack down stitch. But it's the placement stitch that we base the cut file off, and my tack down stitch I usually offset inwards from my placement stitch. So it's about 1 millimetre usually in on the placement stitch. You could go the other way. You could use the tack down stitch as your cut file, and you could have the placement stitch offset outwards. But generally speaking, most applique companies will have accounted for, or digitising companies will have accounted for the offsets. And particularly if you take this process where are we using a backing on this, or we're just going to cut the fabric and stitch it?
This one we're just going to cut it and stitch
it.
With the heat, so this one's got the topping on.
Yes, of course.
So it's the heat and bond.
So it's a good question. It would depend on the digitiser.
I think it does depend. 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗶 seem to, I've never had a problem with it not fitting.
So when you've placed this on your placement stitch, you've found your tack down has been no problems.
Yep.
So they've already offset for the tack down then, I would imagine. But that's a benefit for using the hot melt web.
You don't have to have the offset, you're right.
Yeah,
so if I did back it with a fusible webbing, I wouldn't have to worry about that.
We're going to show a little bit of practical example of actually placing that in a moment. So we'll get this done first and we'll come back to that particular question.
Okay, so heat and bond vinyl is just a clear, looks like a clear plastic sheet, but it's sticky. So this part is actually quite sticky, and this goes onto the top of the piece of fabric that you are wanting to adhere it to. So I just do that now. I do use my favourite protective ironing sheet. Gary, you always make fun of me about these sheets.
She's usually got them hanging out of a pocket somewhere. I haven't got my sheet on me.
It's and I use a medium to warm iron. And you can see, oops, that's fallen, that's Rachel's bed. So that just came back on itself, but you can see it just, might do 2 layers here in the corner.
Because you don't want to directly hit that vinyl, I guess, with the heat. So
it will melt if you do that. So then that is probably good enough, but we weren't. You can kind of see it starting to stick.
So that little sheet, that's a like a Teflon type sheet that doesn't let the iron touch the.
That is why I'm using it. If I left my iron on top of it, I would melt the sheet. So that's why you're kind of always moving it, and then you can see that I pull up my iron, and that is it's a bit hard to tell. But
it looks glossy now.
Yeah, it does look glossy.
Yeah, so put that under.
So that is
under camera there. Yeah, you can see that gloss. Ooh. So it's got vinyl on top.
Yep.
Okay, so what are we doing?
So we are going to cut off the USB, the SVG. So
okay.
this is something that you would get from your embroidery, probably, because this is an embroidery project for spring showers. In this case, it was 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗶, so the embroidery.
I think I'm losing a bit of my stick on this
Maybe
mat.
down here.
Yeah, we might go down there. And that's a good example of, let's just take that mat out.
We've got a few fibres on the mat too that we haven't pulled off yet. So we're going to cut a pair of boots, which is what this file is.
I can rotate the design.
So you'll often get a printed file file for SVG. It's just called Rain
Okay.
Boots.
Put that mat back in. I think I'm losing a lot of stick on my mat.
Maybe. Yeah, you probably are. Do you want to try another mat? I haven't.
We could try the fabric mat, I guess. Although that's not ideal because we don't have a backing on it.
So there are a variety of mats available. I guess it's a
Yeah, we'll try that one. Yeah.
a valid point.
I have
Sorry.
lots of stick on that. So we'll put this one here. I'll put it the right way this time. Let's see how that goes.
So now we've changed to the fabric mat, which is what we would use often if it was we had a fusible webbing on the back.
Okay, so we have an SVG file on the USB stick, and we now need to retrieve data from the USB. And if I find my stylus again, which I've lost again, Rachel, what have I done with it?
Probably in your pocket.
Probably, no, there it is, hiding. So we're going to go to the retrieve data button, and we're going to go to our USB stick. And we've got two SVGs, so I guess one's the right boot and one's the left boot, right?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter what we do first. And I could put them both in and do them, but we're just going to cut the one for now. And let's go OK. So we can see we've got a cut file just here, but I don't know where to put it at this stage. So all I need to do is click the scan button and start. And that will now scan what's in the hoop. I have a feeling your iron wasn't particularly hot there. Now it's picked up that, so that's interesting. So it said to me that this is stop scanning, set the scanner lever to position 2. It's detected this as a thicker fabric, and I think that's because we have a bit of our vinyl lifting. We might need a bit more heat on there. So I'm just going to take that back out. Yes. Don't think we've got quite enough heat in there. So
use that one.
No, not sure what's happening with our iron there. So which way do you want which way do you want the stripes?
Down.
Down. Okay. You can see I don't wear boots. Not recently, anyway. That's better. That's going to be perfect. So preparation is important. And then I lost it again. Okay, so we'll just go back there, and now I'm going to hit the scan button again. We're back on the screen, camera guy. There we go. Scan, start. Yeah, so if you're scanning anything heavier, there's a little lever on the side, and basically it lifts the actual scanner a bit to facilitate that heavier work, because you can cut foam rubber in here, you can cut balsa wood, you can cut thick felt cork.
But we did leather.
Leather, yes.
A couple of millimetres, and it did detect the same. It was the same.
Okay, so back to screen. So all we've got to do now is move our boot to where we want it, and if I put it down there, that would allow me to bring the other boot and probably turn it around and rotate it and put it along the top. So shall we do that, Rachel?
Yeah, I think we should.
So that's going to be pretty good, I think. So let's add the retrieve data. Go get the other boot. And if I knew they were exactly the same, I could have just flipped one of them, I suppose, but we're going to do that. And what I need to do now is edit it. So I'm going to go to edit, and we might go edit object, and we might just rotate that around. And can I flip it? Does that flip it? No. Oh, I'm going to fit it in there anyway. That'll do. That's going to work. So we go OK, 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 cut. I love the automation. I don't have to think about it. So by scanning that piece of fabric, we were able to perfectly place the two cut files, and we know it's going to work. That we don't have to take a picture of it, send it to a computer, plan our position on a computer. It's just all on screen right in front of you. Bless you.
Oh, sorry.
All right, almost done. So is this a relatively new Kimberbell?
Yeah, it just came out March. So we've just been doing another sew along. There are waiting for some fabric kits for new projects, but yeah, we've got a few people participating currently.
There we go, that's done. Let's get our little, oh, we're going to use the metal style. Now you can buy so many extra features available, or functions available, accessories available for this machine. So the weeding tool and the metal spatula is a bit finer again, so it's kind of worth having. And once we get this lifted, we can then just gently peel that away. Look at that, 2 perfect boots. And then it's just, you just got to be careful when you lift these up. You don't want to upset anything. And sometimes that's going to take you as much time as anything else. And once you get that lifted,
it's easy to
pull up.
Pry it off the mat.
So there's one. And if you get anything that's particularly bad, that's when your little weeding tool can get in and just lift things up for you as well. And that's going to come up nicely. There we go. So there's the 2 boots that you would use to do the applique.
The machine embroidery applique, yeah.
And happy days.
Perfect.
Look at that. Perfect. All right, so that's SVG file.
That's SVG file done. So then we have our designs.
Okay, yes. So what we wanted to show you was if you have a PES file, a brother embroidery file, for instance, that is an actual dedicated applique file. Again, depending on who actually created it and how the original file was, but a proper applique file will generally have a placement, a tack down and a cover option. So I've got this little sort of heart design here. Let's just show you there. Not heart, it's not a heart. Where did I get heart from? It's a cupcake.
It's one of our designs.
It's a modified version of, we'll just go to there we go. So it's a cupcake, it's an applique cupcake. The only stitching is the satin stitching in there, and we've got a piece of fabric cut here and a piece of fabric for the actual cake itself.
I think we did them with Mylar.
We did them with Mylar.
Yeah.
So what I did is I just simply opened that file, converted the Mylar into an applique, and saved it, and it's now got all the applique pieces in there. And I want to show you how easy that is to do. So let's just go back to our home screen here. And it's data, so I need to retrieve the data. It's on my USB stick. So if I go retrieve data, USB stick, there's the cupcake file right there. And it is a PES file and it is an applique file. That's how I created it. And all I need to do is click the applique button and it will see that there are 2 applique components in that file. And it automatically extrapolates them out and allows me to select them. So if I wanted to stitch this part, or cut, here I go again, cut this part, the top of the cake, I just select it.
So that means you can use 2 different coloured fabrics.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the plan, is we're going to do the pink for the top and a different colour for the bottom. I don't want to change the size, because it's exactly the right size. There's no need for me to change it because I created the file and I know it's right. And to answer that question before, I can't tell you how you can guarantee that someone's designs are going to be right. And
I guess they may make the assumption that you are going to use a fusible web on the back, which means they don't have to be right because you would iron that on prior to it being stitched.
Now, of course, you can see I've already got this bit of fabric that we had already cut one out of. And I'm just going to position this. Now I have backed this with the web. And the reason I backed it with the web is because it's really, really super simple. That's the Echidna fusible web. It's really super simple. And I don't need to worry about down there. I'm cutting up here. So it's really super simple to place that on my placement stitch and get a perfect applique. So right now, the scan on my screen, if we get camera guy back here, is the previous scan we took. I don't want that. I want a new scan, so I'm going to hit the scan button and it'll scan that fabric in for me. So I hope you're finding all this information relatively interesting and realising that scan and cut actually is pretty cool. And now that fabric is so easy and precise to cut, it just opens up a world for all embroiderers and quilters.
And crafters.
And crafters, of course. It's already amazing for crafters, but fabric is now just a big thing. So I'm just going to move that cut file over to here. And of course, if I was doing multiples of these designs, I could cut out as many as I want, but I just want the one. And again, because we can fussy cut, you can use scraps of fabric that would be, you might have the smallest bit of fabric that is only just going to fit that. You can pop that down and cut it. Okay, so I'm really happy with that. Just click OK, select, cut, and start. And that's it. That's just ready to go. So once that cuts out, we're going to then show you what we do on the hoops. So we can talk about that now while that's cutting. Camera guy can get me back down here. So we've gone ahead and just stitched in a hoop the actual placement stitch for this design. So when you load the embroidery design into your machine, that's the first thing that's going to stitch. You stop. We're going to take this heart that we've now, or heart.
Cupcake.
Cupcake, yep, I get it.
Frosting.
Frosting, that's it. That we're now cutting. We're going to place it down here and press it on with our little mini iron and then pop that back. Well, I haven't got the machine here, but we would pop it back into the machine and then hit the go button. It will then tack it down because I've got an inset 1mm tack down stitch, and then it will sew the cover stitch. But it's pretty simple. In fact, I might arrange to, Nicole will shoot me, but I might arrange to put that design up so everyone can download it. Yes, Pretty. Question.
Leslie has asked, does this work with other embroidery formats other than PES?
It won't accept another embroidery format, but if you have a design, you can always, and you've got any embroidery software, you could convert that to PES, and you could load it into here.
So you'll just save it as a
Save it as a PES file, and then the machine will read it. But again, whether it detects an applique component in there depends on the original digitizing of the design and whether it was done that way. If you've got a brother machine, you can actually open up a PES file that hasn't got a cut file, and you can actually select the stitch that is meant to be the cut file and dedicate it as a cut file, and then the PES, the scan and cut will pick that up. Yes.
A question from Bridget. If I use quilting cotton, which is backed with a woven interfacing, would I use the standard mat or fabric mat with the rotary blade?
Is it a the shape to create woven interfacing, like a cotton woven interfacing?
We don't know whether to wait for Bridget's on a delay with us. So.
If that is the case, then it depends on how new the mats are. Probably if it's a new standard mat, you could use that. Yeah. Or you'd use a fabric mat. That's just trial and error.
It's just what actually sticks. It's got your fabric has to be firmly in place. If it moves, then you're not going to get the quality of the cut that you might expect. So in
fabric mat would probably be okay. A trial and error, I think.
Yeah, it is a little bit trial and error, I think. So so anyway, we've now finished that. Let me just take that off there, peel that away. There's our perfect frosting. See, I got it right eventually. We can take that off now. And we'll just pull this up so camera guy can see us what we're doing there. I'm just getting in under here. The weeding tool actually is really good. That's the little hook. And it is good for getting in under when you've got a little fine fabric or something. And once we get that,
the sharp point makes a difference for actually getting it started. Because you can just, the tip gets right underneath, especially when it's adhered well.
Yeah, so we've got that under there, and then grab this spatula and once you get that going, then it just peels off. Okay, so here we have it. Camera guy can show, that's our frosting. And now we're going to basically, we'll get back up there, we're just going to now press that into position on the placement stitch. So Rachel's going to do that. She's going to place it. And of course, if you don't place it correctly and you adhere it in the wrong place, then don't blame us. That's your fault. So you have to get that right. Hot iron, position it. And these mini irons are great. If you haven't got a mini iron, everyone needs one.
Perfect for in the hoop.
And we do have them in stock. I think we do. Hope we do.
Yeah, we do.
And so there we go. And that applique is now ready to throw it back in the machine, and it'll be a perfect stitch out. So somehow, way, shape or form, we will put that design up as a free download somewhere. Nicole's probably out there going, Gary, what have you said you'd do? You didn't give me any notice, any warning. She loves working under pressure. Okay. All right. What are we doing next, Rachel? So that's an embroidery design.
We are doing complex. So we also talked about, remember I had this...
Oh, you had this old pattern.
This 𝗀𝗵𝗴, and some of you may be familiar with 𝗀𝗵𝗴, and it's 𝗂𝗵𝗵𝗄. So that's...
I'll put that under the main. There you go.
And she has a a paper pattern, a large paper pattern. So these are some of the challenges that we face as appliques. That, you know, this is, how would you deal with this, right? So what I did was I photocopied it. If you can't photocopy it, I think you talked to me about just being able to trace.
You could trace it, yeah. If you haven't got a photocopy or a printer, you could sit and trace it onto a smaller piece of paper. Because the Scan and Cut is brilliant at picking up and scanning simple drawings. Like if you've got a simple black line, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
And a little bit of time to trace it, but it's, you know, it's only a few minutes and it'll give you a great result.
So this is also where we talked about editing. So we traced this, we didn't trace, I photocopied it. It's a bit, the paper was brown, so it's a bit dirty, but it did scan okay. So we're going to get the scanning mat now, Gary, because you're going to...
And a lot of people ask about the scanning mat and why would you have one?
This is, yeah.
To be honest, you don't need to have a scanning mat, but it is handy because the scanning mat, which is not a cutting mat, so never cut. In fact, I don't think the machine lets you cut on it. But it has this sort of matte finish film that prevents glare and sort of flashback to the scanner. And we pop that under there, and that just gives a better scan.
I think the other point with the scanning mat, Gary, is that if you've got a mat that's brand new and you don't want to put your pattern on it, the paper could stick to a standard mat or a fabric mat. So that's why the scanning mat can be ideal for if you're just scanning particularly patterns like we are about to.
And you'll notice here I've got some big black areas here. That wasn't to hide any information, but that was all text. So when I scan this into the machine, what I don't want is I don't want the scanner to pick up all tiny little elements of lettering and have all these little tiny files there, because I have to actually crop them away, and I just get a black texture and just cover them in. So it's just, that now becomes one object and I can easily delete it. So let's just get out of there, go back to here. So right now I want to scan this and I want to create a cutting file. So all I've got to do, if camera guy follows me on screen, is go to my scan button, and I want to scan to cut data. In other words, I'm scanning it to save a cut file. And I do that, and I'm happy with everything. And we hit start. Mat not loaded. Helps if I load the mat. There we go. And then we just hit the start button, and it will scan that image in. It's pretty quick. Again, if you don't, as we said, if you don't have a way of copying those big paper patterns, then just trace it onto a piece of A4 copy paper as best you can. And right now I'm going to, camera guys on screen, we're looking at this going, seeing how good it is. Takes a wee while, shouldn't be too much longer.
But the more complex the design or the image, the longer it will take to respond.
And I'm looking at that and I can see that's done a pretty good job. I think everything's there. And now I just want to pick up the outline of that pufferfish. And so I don't want to pick up any internal detail. There's a little number in there, and I don't need any of this other stuff. So if I click that option there, it's now just going to pick up the outer edges. Now, for whatever reason, this has picked up a whole heap of data that I don't want. So I can go in, and we'll try this first. I can go into my grayscale detection. I don't want as much detail, so I'm going to go a bit to the more black side here, and I'm going to preview that and see if that fixes it. And you will find when you're scanning, the amount of light you have in the room can determine how well the scanner performs. And I've got to tell you, if this doesn't work, it's all these bright lights we have here. But that's done a much better job. I can see now that I haven't picked up all the gunk. So you do have grayscale detection. And it does affect the way it will actually pick up the image. So that's fixed it. I've just gone to a less detailed view, which is great. So now I just click OK. And I can crop away what I don't want. And I'll do that as best as I can, but I don't want to crop away any of the pufferfish. So I don't want to crop off any of the points. And we're going to bring that down to here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here.
Yep.
It's pretty easy. That's going to be nice. I've got a few things to delete when we're done here, so I go preview. I don't want to change any sizes of anything. I'm happy with that, so we go OK. And I'm saving it back to my machine memory. So I could have saved it to the USB or back to my computer if I wished. I haven't got my computer in here, but it's saving it in position number 16. So we click OK. And now, once I've got that, I'm happy. I'm just going to go OK. And I want to edit it now. So, oh, sorry, I've already done that. I've got to open up the file, actually. So now that I've saved it on my machine's memory, I'm now going to retrieve the data. It's number 16. Let's go to the end there. There it is. And I'm just going to go and delete the bits I don't want. So if I hit edit, I can see here, you guys probably won't see it as easy as I am, but there's a little tiny piece of red there. That's what I want to delete. I don't want that. And I'm going to delete that bit. And then there's another bit there. Okay, and there's another couple of little bits there. Little bit tedious doing this, but it's not a big deal. But now I have my perfect puffer fish base. So now that I've got that, if I click OK, I can save it back to my machine memory, and I'm going to overwrite. It'll ask me, do you want to overwrite the old one? Yes, I do, because I don't want the first file because it had those bits of stuff in there that I didn't want. And so now I've saved that part of my puffer fish, and I can keep that as a file and use that as many times as I like.
20 puffer fish.
I could have a 20 puffer fish quilt if I wished. Sure, it would be a wonderful quilt. Okay, so that's now done, and are we going to cut that one now, or what are we going to do first? Or are we going to do a next bit?
I have got this ready to cut if you'd like to, or you can do the next part.
The next part? Okay, we can do that.
Just wanted to say, you might want to talk a bit about this, for this project,
oh yes,
I have used a hot melt film. So this is an applique. Let me show you this is the one I haven't quite finished, but here he is. This is the original 𝗂𝗁𝗃 puff.
Yeah, can you see that, camera guys?
You probably
maybe you're better off under here, yeah.
Under there. You can see how sharp those points are, but I have used that sample with hot melt film on the back because I don't intend to sew around all those spikes. So it was a better option, and it is available.
Hot melt film, it's just stronger, isn't it?
Film, yeah, it's heavier. Permanent. The paper, you can feel the glue on both of these, and same with this one. You can feel how much heavier it is than hot melt web. So web's a bit more open, this seems a bit more dense. We
may run out of time to get all that completed, so we might cut this one.
Okay.
And then just talk about how we'll cut two and then show how we did the layering.
Yeah,
okay. Because I talked too much. So we'll cut the second one. What's the second piece that would go on?
I'm going to find, I think it's number 3, it's number 4, which is, that's number 5. I need to iron this hot melt film. This should be number 4. So
while I'm doing this
one is a little easier to iron. So you can see it's quite a firm opaque film, and I'm just going to relatively warm iron for this, almost hot, and I've just hit the back of the film with the mini iron, and again circular motions, not just leaving it in one spot. And the backing kind of goes clearer, and then you do need to just set it aside to cool down to make it.
And that hot melt film, we would use that if we're attaching badges or any permanent adhesion. And of course, if you wanted to, it's not a machine embroidery applique, but if you wanted to use your sewing machine and run stitches around E-stitches or something like that, you could do whatever you want, really, couldn't you? Okay, so we're just going to do the second part of this, and then we'll just talk about the layering and everything. So right now, if you look at the scan that I've got on there, it's a pretty clean scan. So again, I want to capture the outline, so I'm just going to click that button there. Again, I think the lights in here are playing a bit of havoc, so I'm just going to lower the grayscale or increase the actual dark scale there. Preview that, and that's going to fix it all.
I think probably it's important to note that when you are using an applique file, if you get several designs on one page, you're always going to crop down to the one image that you'll save
Yes.
onto here to cut. And then you need to do the second image. You
That
rescan and do it
pretty
again.
much perfect. So now we're going to crop that down to get rid of most of what we don't want. That's good. And then come down to here, and that's going to be fine. Preview that, and that's excellent. So let's go OK to that. Save it into my machine memory. Now I'm going to open that up again. That's going to go into position number 17, which is fine. And let's just go and retrieve data, not USB, Go back, machine, go to the end, 17, there it is, and OK. And we're going to edit. There's only one little bit of data that I want to get rid of there, so we'll get rid of that. OK, that's great, happy with that, and we'll save that into position number 17. It'll override it, and I've now got that file, and I can use that 1,000,000 times more if I wish, for 1,000,000 pufferfish. Okay, so well, let's cut that one first. So you're ready to go with that?
Ready to
we'll
go.
take that out, and that's backed. So
It's backed, so we use the
well, you can
fabric.
use the fabric sheet. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, which way? Anyway, it doesn't
No,
matter.
it doesn't matter.
Let's just pop that there.
Not directional today.
Got to have a brayer. If you haven't got one of these, yeah, definitely need to get it. And if you haven't got a scan and cut, I'm going to tell you, while this is actually doing what it's got to do, we're going to talk about the amazing deal we have. So let's go OK. Whoops, need to scan that first. So scan the mat. Got to set the mat in first. Got to hit this little button here, which actually loads the mat, which I keep forgetting to do. Now start, do the scan, and then we can position our design and get that perfect cut. Going good, so that's working out fantastic. We will be finishing by 12 o'clock, folks, and of course what we've done here today will be left up on our YouTube channel, probably, I don't know how long it takes, guys, for that to get up there. Will it be up by the end of the day, Flynn? Oh, I just mentioned camera guy's name. Oops. Oh my goodness. Oh, that, not allowed to say that. He's, my goodness, letting the secrets out. Okay, so now all I've got to do is move that to where I want it to be. That's going to cut right there. So I've scanned the fabric, moved my cut file, click OK, select cut, and start, and it's going to do a great job at cutting that. So yeah, so this video will be up in perpetuity. You can watch it over and over again. Hopefully there's some good information here to help you. But I did want to mention, while that's cutting, the difference. So I mentioned right at the start there were 2 new models released late last year. They're not very different to the old models. In fact, I've got a bit of a cheat sheet here I put together. And we have got a sensational option on the Disney model, the SDX 2200, which was recommended retail was $1,099. It's been replaced by the SDX 2250, and to be perfectly honest, the only difference is the 2250 has 50 more designs, and it comes with the Rotary blade kit as standard. But we have the 2200 on sale for $899. It includes an extra retail value, about $331 worth of stuff. And that includes the thin fabric auto blade and holder, the colour pen set, because you can draw on this, the high-tack adhesive support sheets, the iron-on fabric applique contact sheets, and the roll feeder. So that's that continuous vinyl roll feeder. It is roll feeder number 1 that comes with the machine, and a brother scan and cut bag. So let me just show you some of those things. So you do get a scan and cut bag. Oh, I should take that out. I should have taken that out of there before.
I can do it.
You can do that for me. Now this is a very limited offer because I don't have that many of all these things. So you will get roll feeder. So the roll feeder kit number 1 rather, will come with the this deal on the SDX 2200, the bag, extra accessories in the box, because the older model did come with more accessories in the box. It will also come with our educational pack, which you can see on our website. and it will also come with our virtual scan and cut class, which is 5 lessons, Rachel.
I think it's 5 plus
lessons on how to
couple
get
of projects,
started.
3 projects.
So that's a virtual class that you can do at your own pace. And all that is going to come to you for $899, which is $250 cheaper. Yeah, $250 cheaper than the new version. And if you buy the rotary blade as an extra, you're getting more in the box. You get the rotary blade, which is an extra $80 odd, and you're doing it all for a lot less than the new model. So, and there's no difference in the machine. The only other difference is that if you have a Brother XP1 or XP2 machine, there's a really cool Wi-Fi connection that communicates between the scan and cut and the XP models, and that's kind of cool. If you don't have that, you can still transfer your data to the XP using traditional USB. That's not an issue at all. But if you haven't got an XP2, then this is a steal. The SDX2200 Disney model at $899 with all those things we've included. It's a great way to get into scan and cut. Add yourself an extra rotary blade, and you've got pretty much the same machine as the new one, and a lot more stuff with it. So have a look at it on our website. We've only got a limited quantity of those. I think we're releasing, it's 20 or 30 of them. I'd have to check, but that's because we don't have enough accessories to fill that kit with the same deals. So definitely worth looking at. Okay, so we've now finished doing that cut. So let's just get in there and pull that off. Look at that.
Perfect points.
Perfect points. It's a good idea to make sure you pull in the right angles.
You kind of realise, you intuitively do that, right? Once you...
I was going to make a little tiny liar of me right there for some reason.
Once you...
I need my... Haven't had that happen yet, but I may not have had that stuck down properly, I would suggest.
I got one corner.
One little corner there, one little snip right there. There you go. That's the first time that's happened to me, but that could have been my bad. Look at that. Just beautiful. So that's a very good example of why I said just always pull with in the right angles, because it can happen. It doesn't happen very often, but if it does, you don't want to wreck anything. So they
are fine points.
Would
you call this a complex design, Gary?
With these points, so you can see where I'm pointing there. You go up and turn at that angle. That's a complex cut on fabric. Be hard to cut with scissors. Be hard to cut on, yeah. All right, so then it's just a matter of just gently using our spatula. A metal spatula is actually much nicer to use, to be honest. And this is a particularly tacky mat.
I think it's the hot melt film too, so it's got a bit more, that heavier glue on the back.
It sticks really well, so you definitely know that the fabric's not going to move. That's better now, we're getting there, cooking with gas. There we go, so there's one of the pieces.
Perfect.
And I just need to cut the other bit now. So there we go. Again, we're just going to pop that. Any particular angle, Rachel?
No, you can
matter.
just
I can
use
choose.
your imagination today.
Excellent. And just, that's stuck pretty good. So we get back to home. Let's get out of there. Grab my stylus. There it is. And we're going to retrieve the data. So no, we're going to, yes, we're retrieving the data from the machine.
I believe. Yep.
Position number 16, that was it there. And OK. Scan the mat so we know where to place it. Again, that's the advantage, scan and cut.
So
scan
Gary,
the fabric.
I think someone's going to ask, how do you get rid of the image if you didn't want to scan? Well, you wouldn't, would you?
You don't need to. You've got to scan again, yeah. I think. I'm pretty sure that's the case. All right, so all I've got to do now is move my cut file to where I want it, pretty much center it in there. That's great. OK, cut, and start. Now that's going to take about 4 or 5 minutes. One of the things that I've done also in just prepping for today was just, tried to hone in on some of my skills, and I watched some great videos over the last few days of the embossing tool, the rhinestone kits.
Yeah.
Now our education pack that we supply with each of the scan and cuts we sell has a great information in there that's kind of ancillary to the instruction book. It's a bit more about the why you do things rather than how you do things. But we also include samples of heat transfer vinyl, flocking, the rhinestone template. Yep. There's a font pack in there, I think, for doing rhinestones. Great information, and that's included with every scan and cut. Always has been, that we actually sell. But the virtual education is really, really helpful.
You can do it in the comfort of your own home. You can stop the video as you're progressing through each lesson, and you can go back to it because it's in your Echidna account, the virtual education. It's not anywhere else.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so if you buy that, it's a download, it's in your account, you can go back and download it again and again, and so you don't lose it. And it really takes you from a start point, doesn't it? It's designed to be getting acquainted with the scan and cut. It's a fantastic virtual class. And for the vast majority of our customers who are typically sewing and embroidery and quilters, I honestly, and we've talked about it at length over the last few days, that this rotary blade system
I think this is a game changer.
Made it amazing.
Makes it so easy.
So if you haven't got one, get one. Yeah, Brittany, question.
Is there a program that will convert a scanned image to an applique design?
Yes, virtually any embroidery software will do that. Embrilliant's Stitch Artist Level 1 does an amazing job at converting a scan or a JPEG or any shape into an embroidery file. Hatch will do it as well, PE Design, most software will. If you wanted to get into doing that at the lowest, best value price you could, I would suggest Stitch Artist Level 1 at $250 is fantastic, and gives you loads of options for creating applique files. Just brilliant. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Call us, contact us if you want to know more about software, because sometimes the best thing for a discussion about software is for us to talk to you, and then we'll ask you loads of questions and we'll find out what it is you want to do. I have seen for so many times people buy software and I just think you shouldn't have got that, you don't need that, it's not necessary, you're never going to use it, and you've just wasted $1,000, and that's just crazy. We're really good at identifying what you're actually after and helping you make that decision. And the same thing applies to machines. I mean, the amount of times we've had people walk in and say, I bought this, but it's not what I really wanted, or I wanted to do this. Well, sorry, that machine doesn't do it because, you've basically been given a bit of, incorrect advice, or just didn't get advice maybe sometimes. But yeah, loads of good software around, folks. So talk to us about that and we'll help you. No problems. And of course, if you've got a brother machine with My Design Center built in, wow, that opens up a whole new world, because you can take a shape down there and you can turn that into an applique stitch, and that's just another world. I could spend a day talking about My Design Center, but I know we are running just about perfectly on schedule at the moment.
Wow.
I know. Okay, so that's all done. Let's take that off. And again, we've got little sharp edges on there, so we're just going to pull that back. Look at this, just beautiful.
It's a fantastic cut.
I love the fabric, actually. Perfect. So we just got to get in here. I'll get my metal spatula. And once you get it started, I know my hands are in the way here, but there's my phone going off. I forgot to turn my phone off. My bad, I'm not doing as I would normally preach. There we go. So we're just about in there. We're just lifting that up. Now, to be honest, I probably could have used the other older mat that I have here. It's a little less tacky, but when you've got the hot melt film on the back of your fabric, it really does stick quite well, as you can see. And we might use this little guy here. Pull that in under there.
So it's really just getting a part so it will easily pull gently off the mat.
That's right. You don't want to wreck anything. So this is the most important part when you're removing things here. And yeah, that I would definitely, if I'm doing this again, I'm going to use the other mat because it doesn't need to be as tacky as this because we've got the hot melt film on it. If it was just raw fabric, it wouldn't stick as well, and this mat would be far better. And look at that, just brilliant.
It's a great glue.
It is good glue. I can see why they make it the fabric sheet now. Again, your mats will eventually wear out, and don't throw them out. You can still recycle them and reuse them. Now, in the old days, with the old machines which didn't have the auto blade, if you didn't set your depth and pressure right, you could easily cut a hole all the way through the mat. And that was bad because you'd be buying a new mat then. But I don't think I've seen that happen on the auto systems that this now has. So with this, Rachel, you just layer these pieces on top.
You just layer them on top, yeah. I'm not going to press it, Gary, because I need to make sure it's positioned properly.
And if I don't stop my phone from going off, it's not going to stop. So just bear with me for a minute. I'll turn that to silent. Sorry about that. Okay, so
it'll just be layered, and then it'll go into its background fabric.
And you'd end up getting this kind of
effect
here. And where's the picture of that pufferfish? What did I do with
him?
There he is. There he is. So that's the end result that on this design you would get. And it's a great way to use lots of scraps of fabric. And
actually, I really like the negative of that one as well. I think it's fantastic.
You could do something with that, couldn't you? Mm. All you creative people. All right. So I think we've covered a lot. Did we miss anything? Well, we probably have, but we've run out of time. We're almost at the end of the, believe it or not, 2 hours.
No, I don't. Are there any more questions?
Are there any more questions at all? Yes, we have questions. Fire away.
Lynn has asked, if you get time, can you please give us a rundown on the advantages of getting the new Move It foot?
The new Move It foot, I can briefly explain that without, I don't have it here, but the new Move It foot has a shallower or a smaller body to it. So if you've used the Move It foot, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a foot on the high-end Brother machines that's really quite crazily good. The new one is a bit shallower at the back, so as your fabric goes through, particularly a thicker, really thick quilt sandwiches and that sort of thing, there's less likelihood of that kind of just getting caught up or stalled on the back of the foot that has the motor encased in it. So if you have a Move It foot, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people are very happy and they don't have an issue. I've had other people who have bought the new one, and because they do big, quite thick quilts, the new one has certainly been an advantage. Rachel, would you agree with that?
I like the new Move It foot. I used it on the BQ3100 when we did a Zoom, and it was fabulous. And that's because of the, there's more space at the back underneath.
Yeah, and I think it's just the technology's improved over the last 10 years, so they've managed to squeeze more, that same amount of motor and that technology into a smaller location, smaller place, so it's quite good.
Yep.
Hope that explains it. Any other questions?
A question from Rose. Does Brother make a flat fell foot, or is there a foot that would fit the Brother machines?
A flat fell foot.
It's a bi-level foot.
Yeah, what are we trying to achieve? So it's a bit. Can you give us a call, Rose, or email us direct?
Or message us off the web.
Message us direct, and we'll get some more questions for you.
Do you have a deal for the new 2250D machine? The
new 2250D is on our website at 1099, and it includes our education binder, and it will also include the.
2250D is 1149.
1149. Yes. Sorry. Yes. No, I think it's on our website at 1099 at the moment. I think.
That's a 2200. Oh.
No, 2250. I think it is. One of my team, please help me. Check our website and answer that.
I've got it here. 2250 is 1149.
It says 1149. All right. Well, it's either 1149 or 1099, but it does come with our education pack, and it also comes with the virtual classes, the free virtual class set, which is valued at $50. I think that's all we have with that at the moment. But to be perfectly honest, I would grab one of the 2200s. It's unless you've got an XP, in which case you might want the new one, but the 2200's a smashing, stonking deal at the moment, and it's pretty much the same machine. But you're best off, contact us direct, send us a message, and we'll put something together for you, I'm sure. Any other questions?
A few more questions about the Move It foot.
Oh, yes.
Would the Move It foot be good for denim seams?
Yes, it is. So it does give you a really, really good pull-up on the side seams of a pair of jeans, for instance. It will actually really pull that fabric through nicely for you. But it is a wide foot, so you know, some people love it and some people prefer to use the narrower foot.
I think if you're top stitching if it's like a flat fold seam and you're top stitching on top, I think it would be okay.
Yeah.
Well, a dynamic walking foot would be.
A dynamic walking foot would be also very good. But the Move It foot does. The way it works is with that tractor sort of feed system. It's great over heavy, difficult seams. It actually is like a hot knife through butter in most respects. So yes, I think it is.
Anne has asked, does the new Move It foot still have the cord that plugs into the machine?
Yes.
And does it work on the Dream machine?
Yes, so the new Move It foot does still have the cord that plugs in. It is a self-powered foot, so it does need a power supply. And yes, it will work on the Dream machine.
And not a question, but just for our viewers, the cupcake you used is now on the landing page to download.
Oh, so
Thanks,
see,
Nicole.
I got a great team here, haven't I? Nicole's one. Actually, all my team's wonderful. They do a great job all the time. And any other questions? No, we're just about done. So the one thing I was supposed to mention, I forgot. We do have our new little needle pads out too, by the way, guys. So we've made these. They've just got all your different needle styles and sizes. So, you know, and I've got a few needles sitting in there. We made these at a size so they can sit nice and conveniently beside your machine if we just zoom back out. So if you've got your sewing machine sitting there, they'll sit down nicely on your bench beside your machine. And you know, sometimes you take a needle out and you've only used it a little bit, but you want to put a different type of needle in. And you put it somewhere, then you pick it up and go, oh my goodness, what was that needle? Was it any good? Was it bad? A good needle, pop it in the right spot, and you'll know you can reuse that one. So they're available.
And also the little echidna at the bottom.
Oh, it's a good pin cushion.
Yeah, it's
yes.
a great pin cushion.
So you've got the little sort of area there to do that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that they're up on our website now. Loads of new products on the way. I've got some exciting things to tell you about next time, but they've been delayed in transit, so not much I can do about it. We were actually going to release some other things today, but that just didn't happen. Didn't get here. So we'll keep you guessing on that. Look, I think that's about it. Get in, get yourself a scan and cut if you haven't got one. Don't hesitate to contact us directly if you have any questions about anything we've talked about today or anything else for that matter.
Via live chat,
Facebook,
email,
any way you like to do it. We're here to help you. And big shout out and thanks to my team for making this happen today. Thank you for everyone that's joined us, and a big thank you to the people from overseas. We are always getting contacted from our folks overseas and saying, when are you opening a store in the US? We're not opening a store in the US, but we can always help you online, and we're happy to do that. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, we'll be more than happy to help you with anything you want to know about. And on that note,
see you next
Rachel,
time.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you next time. Cheers.